Well, hello there, as Obi-Wan would say in Star Wars. I'm back, and it's been a while. I have been busy with a lot of other stuff. I'm renovating my house, and I have a family, and I also had a day job. So, been busy, been busy, been busy. But I'm here now, and I've created a new tutorial for you guys. And this is a recreation of a quiz that I did in React some year ago. So I recreated it with Next.js, Tailwind, and yeah, that's it, probably. But I'm using the app folder in Next.js, so it's the latest thing that everybody is talking about. So yeah, let's get on with it. Okay, for this tutorial, I've included some files, a starter project for you, and that's because I have created a logo and I have an image and stuff like that for this little quiz application. So you can go and download it on the GitHub link just below this video and start from that one. I've also set up, if we look here in the code, I set up Next.js with the Tailwind. So I've installed Next.js with the starter theme with Typescript and Tailwind. So we have a Tailwind config here and also the post CSS. I haven't installed any extra library or anything like that. And the next config here, this one is also set up for us automatically when we install that from Next.js. And I could do this from scratch, but there's so many different tutorials and there's so many blog posts and stuff, and also the documentation from Next.js that tells you how to start up a new Next.js project with Tailwind and TypeScript, so I won't do that. What I've included here also is some utils for us. This is just a small little function that will shuffle the array, so that one is included here also. And I also have the types for the API, the quiz API. So we're going to have an enum with the difficulty, and this is the question that we get back from the API. We have a category, we have the correct answer, we have the difficulty, and the incorrect answer, and question and type. And then I created my own type that's called question state, because we're going to have a state with the questions and the answers. And I add a property to this one here that's called answers. And that is because we have the correct answer here and we have the incorrect answers here. So I thought it was convenient to include them in its own property here, where I have also scrambled the questions. So we run this util function to shuffle the array, and then we put it in the state on the property answers. And I'll come back to this later when we do this. So that's the types. Then here we have the picture that we're going to use for the application, and I grabbed this from Unsplash. And I have a logo, and this is an SVG, so we just see this code here. So nothing fun to look at here yet. And then we have the new famous talked about app folder in Next.js. So we're going to use this one for this little project. In globals.css, we just have the Tailwind directives here. We have a fav icon that it will include for you automatically, so you can change it to whatever you want. We're going to have a layout. For now, it's pretty empty. So we're going to modify this file. And this is the start page here, so to say. So it says start here. So this is what's in the starter files. So if you start this one up with npm run dev, you should have something like this to start from. So let's go to the layout component. And in the app folder, we have a file that's called layout tsx. We're going to import the font, and we're also going to do some other stuff because we want an image. We want the logo to be shown both on the homepage, on the quiz page itself. So it's very convenient to put that one in the layout, because the layout is going to be used on all the pages that we want to use it. We only have one level here. So we're creating the layout in the root folder of the app. And that means that the layout is going to be used for all of the sub pages, also if we don't specify another layout on that level. But we're going to use this layout for all the pages. So it's very convenient to have it there. So first we're going to import the image component from next/image. Then I want to use the Google font that's called Quicksand, and it's built in the Next.js to use the Google fonts. So import Quicksand from next/font/Google, not Foogle, Google, of course. And it's not a capital S, so Quicksand like that. Then we want the logo from the asset folder, and I like to mark it like this. So it's easier to see this when you import stuff. I mark it with components, logo, and stuff like that. It's easy to just look at the imports to see what it is. So you don't have to do that, of course, if you don't want to do it. Import logo from, and then we grab it from assets / react dash quiz dash logo dot svg. So I had this little at here also, and that is also set up for us already to use this kind of shortcut to grab the folders. So that's very convenient. And this is, of course, this file here, React Quiz logo. So that is the one that I import. Then we can have our CSS, and we import / globals .css. So we import the globals file where we have our Tailwind directives also. This file here. All right. Then we're going to create our font. And in Next.js, you have to do some different steps here to get this font to work. And I create a new const called quicksand. And then I use this one here, this method here, quicksand. We call it like that, and we give it an object, and we set the subsets. It can be Latin. And I also want to create a CSS variable for this one, because this is the way when you use Tailwind to get this font to work with Tailwind. So we set a variable, you can call it whatever you want, -- font quicksand. That is what the CSS variable is going to be called. And then I go to the Tailwind config, and we're going to set this font up. So somewhere here, maybe, we have the theme property. And inside the theme property, we're going to extend the theme. So this is Tailwind stuff. They tell you all about how you can extend your theme in their documentation. So we have the font family, like that. And then we have the quicksand. So I create this property here that's called quicksand. And then I'm going to reference my CSS variable in an array here. So oops, it's been a while since I've done this, so not as fast as I used to be when I record these tutorials. All right, and then we have the variable that we named font - quicksand. So this is in an array, so you can have more of them here if you want to do that. But in our case, we're going to import the font family here, const font family, like that. And this is a require, not an import. Require Tailwind CSS / default theme. So we import, and I actually already done it here. Yeah, you can see I sit here and write exact the same row here. So I've already done this for us. But okay, yeah, it's good. Some extra learning here. So we import the font family, and this is the default fonts from the Tailwind default theme. And here in the array, we can spread this from the font family .sans. And this will give us the default fonts as fallback fonts if this one somehow shouldn't exist, but it should. So this is the setup in the Tailwind config. So let's go back to the layout. And there we can also create different metadata for our pages. And this one is created by default when I set up Next.js. So you can change this to whatever you want to make the SEO a little bit better. So we have our font. We're just going to use it. We have the body. On the body, we set a class name of. I want to change the background. BG dash. And I'm going to use these arbitrary values here. You can set these values up in your theme, in your Tailwind theme also if you want to do that. But this is a really small application. So I'm just do it like this. 2B2737. And that's the background color. And then I want some padding, P4. So you're probably familiar with Tailwind. So these are Tailwind classes that I use here. Then inside here, just above the children, I'm going to have a main tag. And I set the class name. And here we're going to use our Quicksand font that we set up. So instead of this regular, what they call ticks, these ones here, paragraphs, we're going to have the backticks here so that we can grab this variable. So $, curly brackets, and from Quicksand, we grab the variable, and that is the one that we created up here. And of course, when we have these backticks, this is JavaScript, so we have to have the curly brackets also, like that. So that will grab the font from the variable. But we're going to have some other Tailwind classes here to style it also. We set the font to Quicksand. Very important to actually set the font also with this one, because this font is the one that we created in the config. Quicksand, it's going to be named font dash Quicksand. So this is how you use it. And this is how you set it with the variable. So very important to have both of these here. I'm going to set the max width, and I'm also going to use an arbitrary value here, 900 pixels, just to show you that you can use whatever value you want, like this nowadays in Tailwind. So that's very convenient. I set the width to full. I set the margin to auto. I'm going to have this as a flex, and I'm going to use flex columns. So flex col and items dash center. Just a little bit more here in this layout component. Inside here, we're going to have the image that we imported. We set the class name on this one. I want the height to be 80 pixels, like this. And on small medium, I want the height to be full. Then we have the source, and we have a logo that we imported. And we have the alt. Yeah, let's call it logo. And we self-close this one. And then we're going to have the children just below the image inside the main tag, like that. And this should be our layout. So we have this layout file. And actually, when I imported these ones, I think we have to restart it. So break the server here. Clear it, just like that. And run npm run dev again. And go to localhost. And there you have it. You can see that we have the styling with the background, and we center stuff here for the quiz. So that's great. And this quiz is mainly done for mobile devices, but it's going to work on desktops also. But that's why I have it centered like this here. So it's going to fit the mobile screens great here later. And if you have some errors, sometimes when you import stuff like this, I've noticed the globals here, it will give you an error. So just try to restart it. Sometimes it takes more than one time to restart it, but it should work. Import it like this. But I guess sometimes it takes some time for it to kick in or something. I don't know really why it does like that. But if you get in trouble here with this one, it gives you an error. Just try to restart the server and it should work. All right, so that is the layout file. Then we're going to go to the page. So up here in this component, we're going to have the image again. So import image from next/image. And this component is also going to be a client component, and I'm going to show you that later. So import image, then we're going to use the router. Import use router from next/router, you think, because that is the way you do it if you don't use the app folder. But it actually imports it wrongly here, this autocomplete. So next/navigation. That is what it's called when you use the app router in NextJS. Then we have some components. And we can actually create one component now because I'm going to use a button here, and it's also going to be used for the quiz. So here we can create a new folder, components. And inside I have a new file or a folder. You can do whatever you want. I usually have a folder, and then I have all the files that are associated with that component in that folder. But in our case, we're just going to have one file. But okay, let's create that folder. Button.tsx. And it's going to be a really small component, but we're going to have some props for it. So type props, we need to type our props. So we're going to have the text, it's going to be a string, and we're going to have an on-click handler, and this one is going to be a function that returns nothing, so void, like that. And we can create our component. Const button equal, with the structure of the props, the text and on-click, and we have the props type, and I'm using an arrow function. You don't need to do that if you don't want. And we can actually make an implicit return for this one instead. But first, I want to export it so I don't forget that. Export default button, like so. And then we create a button with a class name. And we're going to have some Tailwind classes here. So I set the background on this one. And yet again, I'm using an arbitrary value here. So it's going to be 9F50AC. Then we're going to have some more classes here. I don't want this button to be selectable. So select none. I set the font to bold. I set the height to 45 pixels. I set the min width 220 pixels. I don't want it to be smaller than that. And I'm going to have it a little bit rounded, 10 pixels. And I set the text to white. Then we're going to have our on-click handler. And that one is going up here. On-click. And we pass on the on-click handler that we send in as a prop to this one. And here, we're going to have the text. Do some formatting. And this is the component. So what I've done here is that you send in two props to this one. The text is going to be the text that you want for your button. And then we have the on-click handler. So when you click the button, something should happen. We have an event. And that is the one that I pass on here to this on-click handler. And so we have a very generic button here that we can use for many different purposes. Save this component, go back up inside app folder and the page. And we import button like that from our button folder. Then we're also going to have the homepage image. Import homepage image from assets /home pic.png, like that. And that is, of course, this picture here that we import for this page. I think that's all the imports we need, actually. So in the home component, we're going to use the built-in router in NextJS. So we create a router, const router, and we call the use router hook. Then we're also going to have an event when we click on the button. So const handle. Whoops, what happened? No good. Somehow I changed component. Okay, go back here. And from the router, we have something that's called push. So we change route by using push to /quiz. And this one doesn't exist yet. We're going to create the quiz page later after we've done this. So we have the function to handle the button click here. And here, inside of here, we remove start here. We're going to have some text. We have a p tag with a class name of text-white. And this is, of course, also something that you could set up in the Tailwind config with your theming. But this, yet again, is a very small app, so I just type it in here. And it's also better to have some practice here in this tutorial to do it repetitively, I think it's called. And we have some text here. Do you have what it takes to become the React -quiz master ? That is a very, very cool text. It sounds very impactful. or not. It doesn't matter. You can have whatever text you want. Then we have the image with a class name of, I want this image to have a max width of 700 pixels, something like that. I set the width to full and rounded. It's going to be 10 pixels on this one also. We have the src. That's going to be the home page image that we imported. And we're also going to set an alt. Yeah, let's call it home dash page. And we self-close this. So that is the image. Then we're going to have one more p tag with a class name, text dash an arbitrary value of 9F50AC. That is the color. And we set the padding top to 2, the padding bottom to 8, and we set the text to 10 pixels. And then we have the text image from Unsplash by Milad. I don't know how to pronounce this. Milad Fakurian, maybe. Something like that. And we have one last thing here, and that is our button. We have the text. It's going to be start quiz. You could also not use a prop like this, but you could wrap the text with a button and use it and grab it from the children to the button if you prefer that. We have the on-click handler, handle button click, and we self-close it. And now you think that, yeah, this looks pretty neat. It's going to work. It's awesome. We have our homepage with a button and stuff like that. So we go back to the application and you can see, boom, no, it won't work. And it says here, use router only works in client components. And that is because, yeah, it's a client-based router. Add the use client directive at the top of the file to use it. And this is new in the NextJS when you use the app folder, because all components are by default server components. So we have to specify that as we're using the router and this event here, we need to specify this as a client component. So up here at the top, we specify use client. Save it, go back, and you can see that it works. So that was the only thing that we need to do. So we have to keep track on if we have a client component or a server component. But luckily, it tells us that we did something wrong here, or we forgot to add that one in. And actually, I don't know why the image isn't rounded. It should be rounded. That's because I forgot the ending there, the ending square bracket there. So go back, and there you can see that it's rounded. And it should scale nicely to fit the mobile devices because I made this mobile first, but as you can see, it works on desktop. And if we click this button, it won't go anywhere because we haven't created that page yet. But this is, yeah, why isn't it rounded now again? When I go back, it must be some caching. Class name did not match. Okay, there was something wrong with that. I don't think we will have this problem. It tells me that the server, yeah, it has it cached on the server, I guess, or something, because now it tells me that it don't match the server render here of this one, because it both render on the server and client. So I bet if I do like this, let's break it, go back like this, and then I run npm run dev again, and we wait for it. And there you have it, there. And I go back, and yeah, no, we don't have that error, so it was some caching issue. So it shouldn't give you an error there. All right, but this is the homepage and how you set up the font and stuff. Okay, we've started this off good. We have our homepage and stuff like that, but we want our quiz now because that is what this is all about. Let's go inside of the code editor, and inside the app folder, create a new folder that's called quiz. And this will create a new route for us that's called quiz. And inside the quiz folder, we're going to have two files. We're going to have the page.tsx, and we're also going to have a component that is called quiz.tsx. And this is because I want to fetch this data server side, but quiz is actually a client component because we're going to have some events and stuff like that. So it can't be a server component. We also have stayed in that one. And I want to show you how you can fetch the data server side, but still use a client component for the quiz itself, because we're using state, we're using hooks, and that's because it can't be a server component. You can't use client state in a server component. But we're going to fetch the data from the page that is a server component, and we're going to send the data into the quiz component by props. So first, let's scaffold some stuff out here for the quiz component. So this is a client component. So we tell that by specifying use client. Then we need import React. We can do all the imports now that we're going to need later. But for now, I'm just going to scaffold this one out, and then we first fetch the data and come back to this later. So import, we're going to use router in this one. We're going to have some components. We're going to import the button that we created and use that one here also. And then later, we're also going to import the question card. I haven't created this one, so that one I'm saving for later. But we have some types. So import the question state from types. And these are the types that I provided for you here that I talked about earlier. So this is the one that we import. And then we type our props. The questions is going to be of the type question state. Like that. And then we have the total questions. That one is going to be a number. Then we create a component itself. Const quiz. We destructure out the props, questions, and total questions from the props. Make an explicit return. And for now, we return a div. We set a class name on this one. This is the wrapper div. The text is going to be white. White. And we center the text also like that. And inside here, for now, we can just say quiz component. And we export default quiz. And we are going to receive the questions as prop here. So for now, I'm just going to console log out the questions. Something like that. And we're going to come back to this in the next part and build the actual quiz here. But first, we're going to fetch the data now. So go to the page component, page.tsx, inside of the quiz folder. First, we're going to grab some utils. That's actually one util that I showed you here. And this is the shuffle array function. So we import that one here. Import shuffle array. We have some components. We're going to have our quiz component. That is, of course, the one that we just created, import quiz. And we have some types. Import difficulty, question state, and the question. So 3 different types. Then I'm going to create a const. So, total underscore questions equal 10. So you can easily change this one to change the number of questions that you want later. And we have our component, const home. And this is a little special here because we're fetching data. We create this as an async function, like so. And for now, we return the quiz. And the questions, we don't have these ones yet. And we have the total questions. We send in the total questions that we created here. And we self-close it. So instead of creating the quiz inside of this one, because that wouldn't work, I create a separate component that I make a client component, and I fetch the data before that. So that is how we can fetch the data server side. And we do that by creating a fetch function here that I call get questions. And it's an async function. And this one is going to get the amount. It's a number. We have the difficulty. And we have the difficulty enum type for that one. And it's going to return a promise with a question state, hopefully. Question state. Yeah, something like that. And now it complains because we don't return any promise yet. So that is why it complains. So we have the endpoint. And this endpoint is from a free quiz API that's called opentdb.com. So you can go there and check it out if you want to know something more about that API. We have backticks. We create a template literal. And from https colon / opentdb.com / API.php. Good old PHP. That's great. Question mark. We have a query param with the amount. And this is why I have a template literal, because now I can use this amount here and add it. Then we have an ampersand, and we set the difficulty equal $, curly brackets, and we have the difficulty and an ampersand type. And I set it to multiple types. You can change this also and have this as a param here to change it if you want to do that. Now I'm using the type of multiple, so I'm always going to use that. So that's why I don't have it dynamically set here. So that is the endpoint. And we grab the data, we await, and then I await again because we're converting this to JSON. So that's why I awaited 2 times. Fetch the endpoint. And also there's one important thing we need to do here, because this fetch isn't a built-in with Node. This one is a kind of modified fetch that NextJS provide to you. And you can set different stuff on this one also. So we have a comma and an object. I'm going to set the cache to no-store. And this is important for us because when we go to the page, we wanted to refetch the questions. Every time we go back to the quiz page, we wanted to refetch new questions for us. So it is cached by default, but by setting this in the object here to no store, we're telling it that, yeah, we don't want to cache this. Every time we load this page, just fetch the data and give it to us. So that is why I set this on this object here. And then I also convert it in one go here to JSON. And that is why I had the double await. So really important, an object with cache no store to get this to work. And then we're going to return something. And as I talked about before, I created a type here that I add in the answers. So that is the one that I'm going to use now. And I'm going to map through this here. So return data.results.map. I could also actually have specified the results here on the type for the data. Now I just specify this one here, the question state itself, but we actually have the type of results here also on the data. All right, yeah. Let's see if we can do it like this. Results, question state. No, we have the question. And this is going to be an array actually with questions. So I think something like that will work. So then if we do it like this, we get this nice auto completion. And then we map from the results. All right, I think this should work. We have a question. Yeah, it already has the type now of question as I specified it here. So that's good. I don't need to type it there. I make an implicit return, and I'm going to return an object. First, I spread out the question, and then I add in the new property with the answers. I call the shuffle array, and I give it from the question we have all the incorrect answers. So I spread those out first, and then I also grab from the question the correct answer, like that. So as I grab all the incorrect answers and the correct answer, I put this in one array by spreading the incorrect answers and adding the correct answer, and then I shuffle them and I return it on the new property answers here on this answers object. And this should hopefully give us the data. So let's check it out. How do we call this function? Yeah, it's very easy here in the new Next.js app router structure. So as you mark this as async, we can have a const here. Let's call it questions. And we await get questions. That is, of course, the function that we created up here. And it wants the total questions. And it also wants the difficulty. And we have an enum for that, difficulty dot easy. That is the one that I'm going to use. So it was the easy that I used for this one. You can change the difficulty if you want to do that. And then we pass in the questions to this quiz component and it won't complain anymore. We also need to export default home. And I know that a lot of people likes to export it here just in one go, but I like to have it separated out like this. That is just an old habit of mine. So let's see if this works. Go back to our application, reload it, click on Start Quiz. And you can see this is our quiz component. And here you can also see that we have our data. So that is great. And here is that answers that I created. So I combine those ones, scramble them, and put them on this property here. That will make it easy for us to handle on our questions. So that is great. And we're fetching them server side. So that is how you do it. You create a server component and you pass in the data to your client component. And that way you can fetch it server side and you can still use state and stuff in your quiz components. And that is exactly what we're going to do in the next part when we create the quiz itself with this data. Okay, we are away into this tutorial now. And in this part, we're going to create the quiz component. And in the last part, we're going to create the quiz card. So in this one, we create the quiz component. So let's go inside of the code editor. And inside the quiz, we have some stuff to do here. We've already marked it as use client. And we have imported mostly all the stuff that we need. In the next part, we're going to create the question card. So we're going to import that one also. But we have everything set up here for us. And now, instead of this console log here, we're going to create some states. Const current question index and set current question index. Very long names here, but I like to be explicit. It's easier for another coder to read if you are explicit with your names. I think that is my opinion. Use state, we set it to 0. We're going to start with index 0 when you step through the questions. We're going to have the score and set score. And from React, use state. This is also a habit of mine. I just grab it here on React. You can destructure it out when you import it and just use state directly. But this way I can tell what's from React and what's not a custom hook or something. So that is why I do it like this. Also very individual on how you like to do it. And we have one last state. It's going to be user answers. We want to save the answers also. Set user answers. And this is good to save the answers because you can do some stuff with answers and you can build on this application. I'm not going to do this as a full-blown quiz app. I'm just going to start it off for you so it works. And then you can do your own stuff on it if you want to do that. So we have React use state. And this one is going to have an object. But we want to type this object also. We can do this as this is a generic. We can type it here. So we have a record. That's also a generic. It's going to be a number and a string. So we're going to have the question number, the index for the question, and also the answer here in this object. So that is why I create this record. You could also have done it like this if you want. So you have the ID as a number, and then a string That will also work as a type. But I think this is nicer. So I'm going to use that one now. I don't really have an explanation on why. I'm evaluating this myself. I've done it both ways. But right now I like this way. Then we're going to have a const is question answered. We need to keep track if the question is answered because we're going to show different colors on the answers and stuff like that to see if the user has answered it correct or not. So from the user answers and the current question index, if we have that one in this user answers object, we know that the question is answered, and then it's going to be true. Otherwise, it's going to be false. And of course, it's not going to be set current. It's going to be the current question index. So if this question index exists in the user answers, we know that the question has been answered. And then we have the router, use router, because we want to push the user back to the home page when it is finished. All right, as we don't have the question card right now, I'm going to create the event handlers for answering the question right now and go through that, and also how to change the question. So I'm going to do it in kind of maybe a reversed order here, but that's how I try to do it in this tutorial, to try new stuff out. So we're going to talk about the handle on answer click equals. So we're going to have the answer. It's going to be a string. The answers are always strings here with this API. Current question index is going to be a number. You could also grab it from here directly, but I like to send it in here so it makes it a little bit more dynamic if you need to change something in the future. Okay, so if user has already answered, do nothing. So if is question answered, we just return. Otherwise, check. Let's go up here a little bit also. Check answer against correct answer. So we have the user answer here when we click on the answer, and then we need to check if it's correct or not. So const is correct equal. And there are thousands of ways of doing this. So this is just one way. There's no only one truth on this. This is the way I choose to do it this time. So from the questions, these are the ones that we grabbed and we send in as a prop to this one. We have the current question index, so we grab the correct question, and we have the property that's called the correct answer. If that one equals the answer, we know that the user have answered correctly. So is correct is going to be true if that one is true. Add score if answer is correct. We want to add a score to the user. So if is correct, set score. We have a state for the score up here. You remember we created that one here. So set score. We have the previous score and previous +1. And then we also want to save the answer in the object for user answers. Like that. So set user answers. We have the previous state again. I make an implicit return. So I have parentheses and then I have the object. I spread out the previous state. And I create a new property here. I do that dynamically by using the current question index. And then I set the answer. So that will add the question with the question index and then add the answer to that one. So it creates a new property. So this is everything we need. We check if the question is answered, then we do nothing. And then we check if the answer is correct. So we tell this, so we have this Boolean here to tell us that. And if it is correct, we're going to add a score to the score state. And we also save the answer in the user answers. So that is all we need to do here in handle on answer click. And then we're also going to have another event handler, handle change question. We're going to have the step as a number. Right? And the step is going to be the current question index. So const new question index equal current question index plus step. So the step can either be going back, so it's going to be -1, or going forward, it's going to be +1. But we also want to restrain it, so we can't click, so we go further than the first question, further below the first question, or we go outside the boundary of the last question. So if new question index is less than 0, or new question index is greater or equal to total questions, that is why we need the total questions to be sent in here, so we keep track on that. So if it's less than 0, or if it's greater than the total questions, we know that we're going to be out of the boundary, and then we just do nothing, we return. Otherwise, we set the current question index. We can make maybe like this, make it a little bit cleaner, to the new question index. So set the current question index to the new question index. So we constantly update this state, the current question index, when we step back and forth between the questions. And that is all we need in event handlers. Then we can just return some new JSX here before we create this question card. So we have the text white, the text center. We're going to have some more text inside of here. So we have a p tag with a class name of p. The padding is going to be 8. We set the font to bold. We set the text to 20 pixels. And this is going to give us the score. And we have the score here, so we use that one. Then we have another p tag with a class name of text. Is going to be that color again, the arbitrary color that I probably should have put in the theme, so I don't have to put it here all the time. 9F5OAC. Font dash bold, PB2, and text dash 14 pixels. I think that's it for that one. And it's going to say question. And then we have the current question index +1, because index starts at 0. So we add in 1 here out of, and yet again, we grab something dynamically here. So we have the total questions like that. Then we're going to have the question card here. We haven't created this one yet. Question card. And below the question card, we're going to have a div with a class name. Flex. We make it a flex. We justify between empty 16. The margin top going to be 16. Then we're going to have 2 buttons, one for stepping forward and one for stepping backwards. So we use the button component that we created and imported before. We have the button, the text is going to be prev, like that. The on click is going to be an arrow function. I make it inline here now. And we call the handle change question. And this one needs to know if it's going backwards or forward. So we send in -1, simply like that. This is one way of doing it. And we self-close it. Then we have a next button. The text is going to be, this one is going to be a little special. So we have curly brackets, because this button is going to change text depending on if we're on the last question. We're going to go back to the home page. Otherwise, we just step through the questions. So we're going to check if the current question index is equal to total questions minus 1. And if it is, it's going to tell us end. The text is going to be end on the button. Otherwise, it's going to be next. So that is the text for the button. Then we have the on-click handler that I probably should do here. So if the current question index equals to total questions, just the same here, minus 1, we could also put this in a separate statement somewhere, in a separate const or something. So if we're at the end, we have this arrow function where we push. So router.push / so we push the user back to the home page. Otherwise, we're also going to have a question mark here because this is a turning operator. And now we have a colon. So if we're not on the last question, we want to go to the next question instead. So we call the handle change question and give it 1, and that will make it step forward. And we self-close it. And we have some error. And why is it so? That is because I forgot to create an arrow function here, like that. So this should be it. If we save this and go inside of here, and we have an error. Yeah, I know probably why, because I imported the wrong router. And this is, as I told you before, this is the old one. This one needs to be imported from navigation instead when we use the app folder. So change that one to import from next/navigation instead. And there you have it. So you can see if we go, and then it tells me N, and it should go back. So it goes back. And we can't go more than to the question 1. So that is great. It seems to be working here now. And the only thing we have left is to actually create the question card. So that's what we're going to do in the next part and finish this quiz. All right, let's create the question card. So go back to the code and inside the components folder, where do we have it? There. Create a new folder called question card. And then inside of that folder, create a new file called questioncard.tsx. And this one is going to have a few props, actually quite many props. We're going to have the current question index. It's going to be a number. We're going to have the question, and that one is going to be a string. We're going to have the answers, and this is going to be a string, an array of string. You can type it like this, or you can also type it like this, so you can easily see that it's an array, like that. User answer is going to be a string, or it can also be undefined. And we have the correct answer. It's going to be a string. And the last one is going to be the on-click handler. That's going to be the function that we created here in the quiz. This is the function handle on answer question. And we have a type for that one. And one thing I usually do is I just go here, I hover, and you get the type here. So I copy it, go to the question card, and paste it in. So we have the answer as a string, the current question index as a number, and we return nothing. So it's going to be void. All right, that's the types for the props. So we can create the component const question card, and with the structure of the props, we have all of them here. Current question index. We have the question. We have the answers. We have the user answer. We have the correct answer. And we have the on-click. Then we have colon props. And I have an arrow function. And I can actually make an implicit return. So we have parentheses. And we're going to return a div, wrap a div first, like that. Then we're going to have a p tag with a class name. The text is going to be 20 pixels. The max width is going to be 400 pixels on this one. And then we're dangerously going to set the inner HTML here with the question. And this sounds dangerous, but it isn't that dangerous because now we know that this is safe. We can use that to actually insert HTML formatted text. HTML and the question, because the question can be HTML formatted text. Like that. So that is going to be the question. Then we have a div with a class name of flex call, and items center, and a padding top of 8. And then we're going to map through the answers here. So curly brackets, we have the answers, we map. We have one answer, make an implicit return, so parentheses. Then we return a div. And as we're mapping through stuff, we need a key. And the answer is going to be unique, hopefully. So I use that as a key. We have the onClick. It's going to be an arrow function. And we call the onClick, and we call the onClick that we sent in as a prop. We give it the answer and the current question index. And then we're also going to have a class name on this one. But I'm going to do a little special thing here with this one. So let's first skip this. Let's see, where am I? I should be inside of, yeah, of course it should be not like this. Should be here. We also need to close this div. So inside of this div, yeah, something like that, we're going to have a span with a class name of trunket, and dangerously set inner HTML underscore HTML, and we have the answer. So that is going to be the displayed answer. And this is going to work now, but we don't have the styling, and that is what I want to show you. But first I want to make sure that it works. So go inside of the quiz, and here import question card. Did I forget to export it? Yeah. So go back and export default question card like that. And then go to the quiz and import question card like that. And then we can use it here where we typed out question card. We use the question card. Give it all the props that it needs. You can see that it complains now. So we need to give it the current question index like that. Then we need to give it the question. And the question, we can grab that from questions and the current question index dot question. The answers, those we can get from questions, current question index dot answers. And this one, as we're typing this out all the time, we could also have made a shortcut for this one, but I didn't do that. Just as before, this is a fairly small app, so it is what it is. We have the user answers. No, the user answer, not S at the end. So the user answer, we can grab that from user answers and the current question index. So we're always using the current question index to grab those ones from both the answers and the user answers. So that is enough there. Then we have the correct answer. And that one we grab from the questions, current question index dot correct answer. And this is also where Typescript is so super nice because we get this auto completion. We instantly see what properties exist, and it's hard to do anything wrong. Then we have the onClick, and we're going to send in the handle on answer click. And we self-close this, and then it shouldn't complain. save it. Also make sure that you save the question card. You probably have auto saving and stuff like that. I like to save it manually. I'm a little bit old school there. Go back to the application, and here you can see that we have everything, but we can't see actually when we do anything. When we click on these ones, we can't see anything. And that is the styling that I'm gonna do now. And it's a little bit special because we want to change the style if the user answers incorrectly or correctly. We want to display it as red if it's incorrect. And also we want to display the correct answer. So go back to the code, and inside the questions card, create a new file called helpers.ts. And we're going to create a function inside of this one. And we export this function, export const get bg color. And this one is going to take in the user answer. And it's going to be a type string or undefined. Then we have the correct answer. It's going to be a string. And then we have the answer. It's going to be a string also. And it's going to return a string for us. We're going to return Tailwind classes here that we're going to use and parse in to the class name in the component. So first we're going to check if the answer is correct. Const is answer correct. So we have the user answer. If that one exists, we make a turnover here. So the user answer equals the correct answer. So it's going to tell us if it's true or false. Otherwise, it's going to be undefined. If the user answer doesn't exist, as it can be undefined also. So that is why we have that. Then we're going to do some funky if statement here. And I realize that this isn't probably the most readable here, but it works because we have to check some different cases here. So if, and we have double parentheses, as our first going to have is answer correct. If that one is true, it can also be undefined here. So that is why I explicitly check if it's true. And if answer equals the user answer, else, double pipes, parenthesis, if is answer is correct, equals false, and the answer equals the correct answer. Then we're going to return a string with the background dash 55AC7B, I think it is. Or is it 8 maybe? Yeah, doesn't matter. It looks almost the same. And the text is going to be white. So these are Tailwind classes we return here. And let's go through this again. So if we have a correct answer and the answer is also the same as the user answer, or if the answer is not correct, but the answer is the correct answer, we want to display the answer as green because we want to display the correct answer, always display that one, and that one is going to be green. And also, if the user has answered it correctly, we want to display it green. So that is why. So if the answer is incorrect, we're also going to put in here to display the answer as red. If the user clicks on an answer that is incorrect, it's going to be displayed red, and the correct answer is still going to be displayed green. Yeah, so there are some cases here to consider, and this is the one that I come up with to make less code. There may be some other smart, and there probably is for sure a smarter solution to this, but this is the way I did it. I didn't have time to actually sit through it and think about it. I have a lot of other stuff to do also, but this will work. So we check if the answer correct is false and the answer equals to the user answer. We're going to return bg dash AC5050. We're going to return a red color and the text white. Like so. So if the answer is false, And if the answer that we're currently iterating through is the one that's the user answered, we're going to display it as red because it's incorrect. Otherwise, if we not have any of these cases, we're going to return BG white, and the text is going to be 9F5 OAC, like that. So this is it. We check for different conditions here and change the color. And we're changing the colors by returning different Tailwind classes. So go back inside of the question card. And up here, we have the helpers. We import get BG color, like that. And on our div here, this one, the wrapper div inside of the answers map, just anywhere here probably, we can have a class name, curly brackets, because we're going to call this get BG color now. So we have backticks, double backticks. Inside the backticks, we have a dollar sign and curly brackets again. And we call the get BG color. And as you can see here, it needs some params. So we're going to give it the user answer, the correct answer, and the answer. And then we're going to have some more classes also here that we don't need to dynamically set. So just here, and it's going to be long. And this is something that I don't like with Tailwind, that you have these long rows with classes, but I actually love to use it, and I do it all the time now. But this is one of those things that I don't like, and I think many of you don't do that. So, but it is what it is. We have the cursor as a pointer. We have a flex, items dash center with justify center also. Select is going to be none. We don't want the user to be able to select anything on the answers because they're going to act as buttons more. We set the font to bold. The min dash age, the min height is going to be 45 pixels. And no, it's that long, and it's also hard to show it for you here as it's on the edge. And we have a max width of 400 pixels. We set the width to full. We set the margin Y to 2. And the last one is going to be rounded dash square brackets and 10 pixels. Do some formatting here at least. And we save this one, go back to our quiz. And there are some little stuff here that I forgot because it should be centered. The text here should be centered. Let's see. Yeah, it should say items center, not item. So items center. You know, it works. And you can see there I did an incorrect answer, and then it displays the correct answer as green, but my answer is red, so it's wrong. Yeah, so it seems to be working. Yeah, I'm just clicking through here. I'm not thinking about it. But this one was actually correct. So then it displays it as green only. That one was correct, and that one was wrong. So it displays the correct answer as green, and it seems to be working. And here it says end, so I can go back to the home page. And there you have it. A simple quiz that will work on mobile devices also, hopefully. And you can modify this as you want and add in stuff to it and make it a much more dynamic and more full quiz, so to say. So thank you for watching. I'm very glad to be back doing this video. So hopefully I have more time to do more videos for you guys. See you in another one.